The Supreme Court just heard arguments in a potentially landmark case that could open the door to publicly funded religious charter schools. At the center, St. Isidore of Seville, a proposed Catholic virtual charter school in Oklahoma planned and operated by the local archdiocese. The school wants to teach Catholic doctrine while receiving state money, something never before allowed in the charter system. Conservative justices appeared sympathetic, framing the case as a matter of religious freedom, saying religious groups shouldn't be treated as, quote, second class. Chief Justice Roberts could cast the deciding vote. He asked whether Oklahoma's heavy oversight of charter schools makes this different from past cases. And here's the twist. Oklahoma's own Republican Attorney General, Gentner Drummond, a practicing Christian, is leading the fight against the school. He argues this violates the First Amendment's ban on government-sponsored religion and that it threatens to undermine the entire charter school system. So what's really at stake here? Are we about to redefine public education in America? Joining me now is Kristen Waggoner, CEO, President, General Counsel of Alliance Defending Freedom. ADF represents the Oklahoma Statewide Charter School Board, one of the plaintiffs in the case, who admitted the religious online school into the charter program, and one of ADF's attorneys argued the case before SCOTUS this week. Kristen, nice to have you back. This is bigger than Oklahoma, right? Because if the Supreme Court rules for the school, then all federal, all state charter laws would be unconstitutional insofar as they require a non-sectarian approach.
No, that's not at all true. Actually, what matters here are the individual requirements of the program itself. So if we look at the Oklahoma Charter School program, it's undisputed that the program was opened up by government officials. It's a public program, and that they have refused to allow religious groups to enter that program simply because they're religious. It's a categorical bar. States may choose to set up their programs different than how Oklahoma has set up theirs, which may lead to different results.
Okay, can we agree on this? Right now, there are no religious charter schools in America, and perhaps that's about to change.
I think what we can agree on is that 3 times in the last 8 years, the Supreme Court has rightly said that if you're going to open up a program, or, for example, you're going to enter into a contract with private groups, you can't tell the religious groups they need not apply. In terms of the religious... Kristen, play ball with me here. Can you name one religious charter school in the United States? The answer is no, there are none. I'm trying to educate my audience that the ramifications of this case extend to all 50 states and will impose fundamental change. On that, we can agree, right? I don't think that I can't agree with you on the last part of your statement.
Name a religious charter school in the United States. Just please identify one, and then we can move forward.
I agree with you there. It's the last half of what you said that I disagree with, which is that it's not changing the law in all 50 states. But let me tell you what I'm thinking on this, because I think that parents are entitled to more educational options, and these are privately run schools. Oklahoma has traditional public schools. They'll continue to have traditional public schools. But when Oklahoma wants to engage with privately run entities, then it's okay to have schools that are emphasizing Native American culture, which they do. It's okay to have schools that are going to emphasize environmental stewardship, which they do. To bar Catholic schools or religious schools simply because they're religious denies parents equal opportunities and denies religious groups their constitutional rights.
I heard you say that on CBS, so let's go there because I was going to ask about it anyway. You said, hey, they're already having charter schools in Oklahoma, to your point, that celebrate Native American culture, performing arts, and nature. That was the soundbite that I heard. And I said to myself, as I watched you, that's true, but none of them involve a First Amendment, where the First Amendment says, hey, we can't establish a religion. If there's a nature-inspired charter school, there's no religious implication. So I didn't think that was apples to apples.
Well, you can think what you want, but we both know what the Constitution says. And what we know is that it is not a violation of the Establishment Clause to treat people of faith and treat religion neutrally, especially when we're looking at this particular issue where Oklahoma is ranked second to last in the United States. The fact that they want to empower parents and have the money go where the child goes, that's good for all people, people that are religious and people that are not.
You say, I guess, that the exercise portion of the First Amendment trumps the establishment portion of the First Amendment.
I say that government endorsement doesn't occur when the government is neutral, and religious bigotry is not okay. And that's what's happening here. And I also want to point out that the Attorney General that was in place prior to General Drummond actually agreed with the board's decision, because the Supreme Court precedent is clear in this respect.
Right, and then he lost. And then he lost the Republican primary, and a new Republican Attorney General, you correct me where I'm wrong, because I'm not, a new Republican Attorney General, similarly self-described as a Christian, he came in and said, we can't have this because it violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment.
Well, that's actually not exactly what he's arguing. What he's arguing is that he doesn't like certain religions and he doesn't want them to have schools. But what I want to emphasize here is 200 families immediately signed up for this program, and they want educational options. And the Constitution says that the government has to be neutral. Think about the soup kitchens, Michael, or the homeless shelters, or the foster and adoption agencies, all that are entering into private contracts. If we start saying that they are all a part of the government, none of those services will be as good as they are right now.
The problem by the way, I'm completely supportive of a parochial education, an education that's in line with any particular religion. I'm cool with that. I think they do a wonderful job in many instances. I want to make that clear. The issue here is whether taxpayer dollars, I mean, you know the hypotheticals that I'm going to raise. What happens now if that new charter school with a religious flair says, we're not hiring any gay faculty? What if they say we want to teach creationism? What about the example that was raised by Justice Kagan, where maybe now it's a New York City-based charter school and they say we want to teach Yiddish and be based on the Talmud, and federal tax dollars are going for that?
Well, first of all, this program is focusing on state tax dollars, and state tax dollars are already going to all kinds of things that taxpayers don't like. The money follows the children, and that's a good thing. It's a result of parental choice. It's not a result of the government's choice. Vouchers, tax credits, this is already happening. It's been happening for years, and it's what fosters innovative educational approaches. Let the parents decide.
But those vouchers, come on, those vouchers can be used, therefore, in a parochial school, in some other religious influenced school. This is different because charter schools are public schools that are run privately. That's why my first question to you was to say this would be precedent setting. This would completely change the dynamic of public education across the country. I'll give you the final word. Go ahead.
Families deserve more educational options, not fewer. It doesn't change the dynamic in this respect. Parents know what is best for their children, and they deserve educational options like St. Isidore, which has a 100% graduation rate and a 98% acceptance rate in college. This would open up educational opportunities to students that never otherwise would be able to afford them. It's a good thing, and religious discrimination violates the Constitution.
But in some areas, that charter school is the only game in town. In some parts of Oklahoma, there's like one. That's what was argued by the Attorney General of Oklahoma in this case this week.
And he knows it's not true. There is a statute that says every Oklahoma school district has a traditional public school in it.
Okay, we can agree that he said that to the Supreme Court of the United States, right? Those arguing on behalf of the Attorney General.
We can agree that there were some statements made to the court that didn't accurately represent what the law is.
Okay. Just trying to meet you halfway on the things we can agree with. There's some things we can agree with in this case. Thank you, Kristen.
Come my way a little bit next time. Nice to meet you. Nice
Thank you for that.